Welcome to Psychic Holistic Spotlight. I'm your host, Josie Way, and co-hosting with me today are Kathy Medeiros and Ken Demers. I am very pleased to have as our guest Barbara G. I discovered her as a jewel in the lotus, as she might understand, of a yoga instructor. She also does Ayurvedic medicine, and we're going to discuss that a little later. Tell me, you started with the yoga later in life. You've been practicing for like 10 years or instructing 10 years?
I've been teaching for 10 years. Yeah, I actually started yoga when I was about 18.
Oh.
And back then, enough years ago, that there were no studios, no CDs, no DVDs, and I had one book, black and white pictures, and I studied diligently with the book. Mm-hmm. And did that for as long as I could, and finally it just became difficult to keep moving on with the practice. So I fell away from yoga as such, but I continued always to pursue some kind of spiritual practice. Mm-hmm. I actually took up Aikido, which is the Japanese martial art, and had sort of the same problem. I was living in New York. There were dojos there were teachers there, and when I left New York, it was like going into the desert again.
Yes.
So there were no teachers again. So it's only been in the last maybe 15 or so years that there have really been yoga studios, yoga teachers, yoga places to go to study yoga, continue with it. So I took my teacher training 10 years ago. I've been teaching for 10 years.
Yeah, that's, I know you say that we all have, as an instructor, each one has their own preference of the people that they like to work with and the type of yoga, because there's many, many types now.
It's less a sense of the people that say, I would like to work with. It's more people who might want to work with me or not want to work with me or not like the style of yoga that I teach. So yes, there's a whole host of different yoga styles. What's happening, unfortunately, in the yoga world is that while yoga is becoming increasingly popular, many more people are doing yoga, they're not actually pursuing the full practice of yoga because they're more interested in and drawn to the physical elements of yoga and less to
the core support.
Yeah. So it's a fitness program, which is fantastic if that's what you want and need. But it's only one small component of yoga, are the poses, doing that. So the other elements of yoga include meditation, and there are ethics within yoga, within the yoga tradition, ways of working with other people, ways of working with yourself. So yoga in its entirety is really a way of living life. So it's a lot more than just having a wonderful physical presence on the planet.
This is my opinion, the people I've met that practice yoga in its full capacity are such loving, caring, peaceful people. It's in my experience.
Absolutely. Even if, and this isn't being judgmental, even if your only connection to yoga is through the physical practice of yoga, even that is infused with spirituality. So by default, you begin to absorb and learn the different spiritual components of the practice.
Now, what are the spiritual components that's tied in with the yoga?
Yoga is a spiritual practice, and it is, again, an ethical and spiritual way of living life. It's a guideline, it's a map for people to learn different ways of working with the world and situations that come up. It's like a toolbox.
Okay.
And whatever situation arises in your life, you can sort of go to your yoga toolbox and look through and see what might work with that situation, what might work with another situation.
Yeah, well, when you're practicing meditation as part of it, and yoga is not a fast exercise program. It's a slow, sturdy building up of the body and paying attention. What I think happens for those that are just doing it for the physical, they are surprised to find out that their outlook on life has changed because they're taking good care of their bodies. And once you start there, you can move forward.
And you begin to learn the correct ways to breathe and work with the energy in that way. So it's an energetic program. You learn about the subtle body in yoga and how to work with the koshas, which are the different layers of your being. So when you start to really dive into yoga, you may very well come to it through either meditation or the physical postures. But when you start to, even with the physical postures, each posture has a name, and there's a spiritual component to that particular posture, and it can have to do with the animal it's named after or the deity it's named after. So there is a reason for all the different names of the poses, the Sanskrit names of the poses. And
is that where the names come from, Sanskrit?
Yeah. Yoga is based on Sanskrit, or it came from the Indus civilization, which was prior to Hinduism. So where many people think that yoga is Hindu, it's actually before Hindus. So it's not attached to a specific religion.
The Hindus imported it as a part of their practice.
I mean, a lot of different. Lemuria.
Say again?
It probably came out of Lemuria, which was a much older civilization.
Yeah.
And when that sank, they went into, a lot of them went into India and China, and so that's why they have these tales of dragons and stuff, comets.
And then yoga spreads. So from the India, what we now think of as India, that part of the world, the philosophy spread, and traditional Chinese philosophy and Chinese medicine learned from the Indian systems and developed theirs, and the different religions, Hindu and Buddhism and Jain,
now,
came from.
Do people mix yoga up with their religions? Do they feel it's intruding on them, or they look at it non-religiously?
Some say school systems, for instance. If you go in to teach yoga, you're not allowed to talk about anything spiritual. It has to be pretty much a physical practice, in case you offend or step on toes or say the wrong thing. So there's a certain feeling of being hampered when you can't really talk about what it is that you're teaching, but if that's what
I remember about 10 or 15 years ago, there was a born-again minister somewhere in the southern United States who was teaching that yoga was the work of the devil.
Yes, there's
So
always that.
Comes from a little,
Yeah.
little point of misunderstanding.
We all suffer from that. Spiritualism is, not a good
A
religion.
religion. Yeah.
We all suffer from misunderstandings from others.
We were talking, a little earlier before we went on camera about ignorance and how it's just people not understanding what it is that you do, there's the immediate sense that yoga is a religion, and if you're not attracted to that particular religion, you stop listening and stop paying attention and just...
See, I've never particularly thought of it. I don't know that much about yoga. I know when I used to take it used to make me hurt, so I stopped taking it. I'm a little stiff.
That's why you take yoga.
Yeah, I know.
It's to get rid of the
now, but
stiffness.
it's not going to happen. But anyway, I want to change subjects just for 10 seconds. This is probably the beginning of our 30th year. And I think it's very interesting that we would go to one of the oldest systems in the world to start with, again, for our first session of the 30th year. Now,
For the next 30.
we were talking
We're grooming
earlier.
young ones
Yes,
to
we
carry
are.
this forward.
Yes.
The name of your studio is what?
Kumbhak Yoga.
And Kumbhak Yoga is?
Kumbhak Yoga is a
word.
collaborative. The word itself means the place between the inhalation and the exhalation where you pause.
The point of
So
stillness.
it's the point of perfect stillness.
Why do you say perfect stillness?
Because it's perfection.
Elaborate on that thought.
How hard it is to find stillness in the world in general. And that stillness is not out here at all, but it's inside. So you're breathing, everything is moving, your systems are all firing and going and what have you, and that the only time that you can ever be completely still is either if you totally cease breathing or that point between when you're breathing, between the inhalation and the exhalation, the pause.
Now, is that where the meditation part of yoga comes in? Because of the breathing with the yoga?
Breathing is its own practice within yoga.
Okay.
So you could have an entire yoga practice one day that is just working with the breath. Different techniques of working with the breath.
Different ways of breathing.
Yeah. And for whatever it is that you want to achieve, if you want to calm down, then there are certain techniques that you can turn to calm yourself down. And a lot of these different techniques nowadays are being used with people with PTSD and different emotional issues. If you feel that you need to sort of rev yourself up. So if you suffer from anxiety, you want to calm down. If you suffer from depression, you want to rev up. So you can use different techniques to do whatever it is you need with your energy.
At one time, rebirthing used to be very popular.
Oh my gosh.
Which is a very intense breathing. I've never heard of anybody using that type of intensity in yoga. Maybe I just don't know enough about it.
Because it's within the yoga world, everybody knows about the breath. Pranayama is the way.
Breath is energy.
But again, when you are not fully connected with those in the yoga community, you think it's just physical exercise. So you are not even necessarily aware of the fact that pranayama, that breath work, is a very specific part of yoga practice. Meditation is a very specific part of a full yoga practice.
I'd like to back up one half a sentence. Pranayama.
Pranayama.
Prana is
Prana
energy
is the
from the
life
breath, I
force.
guess.
Chi.
Chi.
Or ki.
What's yana?
Ki is in Japanese, chi in Chinese.
Right.
Prana is the same thing. It's
In
the
India.
life force.
Oh.
It's Sanskrit.
So it doesn't have a different. Prana
Is
one
chi.
thing, and
And
yana
is
is
ki.
the same meaning as prana?
Pranayama is working with the breath. So
Working
prana and
with.
yama.
Okay.
Pranayama. So it's breath work.
Okay, breath
Control of the breath. And very often the breath and prana are used interchangeably, but in fact the breath is the vehicle through which you draw the prana in.
Yeah.
And the transformation takes place. And
I
the
use a
prana-
meditation when I'm doing healings.
Yeah.
That I have people visualize breathing with every breath they take, they're breathing in the energy to the heart, and with every beat of the heart, they're transforming that energy to the energy of the body.
That's
So
very
kind
much
of
what pranayama is along those lines, and I would use something very similar to that as a guided meditation, that exact technique that you're talking about. So I've used the technique of when you breathe in, the flame in your heart
A spark.
grows,
Yep.
and as you breathe out, that heat, warmth, and healing energy is spread throughout the body. So each breath grows the flame, and the exhalation.
I've never heard anybody talk about that.
And the
I use it.
flame is spirit.
Yeah, it's a visualization of the heart and growing the
A
heart.
spark of divinity within your heart. Like I tell people to look for a candle.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, I'm saying, now you're looking at a bonfire within your heart.
Yeah, it's the same.
So kind of
It's the
same.
same.
I've never heard anybody talk
Well,
that
if you
way
think
before.
about it, we're human beings. There are only just so many ways that we can, move through life and learn and move through life. So what I find fascinating also, the more I learn about yoga, is the more I see the connections to all these other different practices. And your healing practice has so much of yoga within it. From my perspective, it's very much the energetic component, elements of yoga.
My original, I'm a believer in past lives. And my original that I know of in the healing would go back to a point in time when the yoga would have been very common in Lemuria, like 40,000 years ago. So that it doesn't surprise me that hearing
Well,
what you're
it's
saying.
the sages, the rishis, the seers, which are the words
Yeah.
within the yoga tradition for the wise people, knew so much of this stuff, and they knew it just from observation.
It was everyday life. It's
Yeah.
like India nowadays. You know, people say, "Oh, we're going to go to India to teach them religion." Well, we're
It's
like
the
a
other way
1 or a
around.
2, and India is like a 9 or a 10. You know,
Yeah.
in level of spirituality.
Yeah.
And people in the Christian religion don't understand that.
Yeah.
So when you took the classes for the yoga, was it just one course or was it more than one from different teachers?
The teacher training was, first of all, the 200-hour training and then a 500-hour training to move on with the training. And that was a designed program for teacher training. The 200-hour is sort of the beginner and the 500 is more advanced yoga studies. And you study yoga philosophy and yoga postures and breathing and meditation and different ethical practices that are part of the yoga tradition.
So it is very inclusive then when you take the courses.
Very much so. Very much so.
If we have Ms. Caffey gonna start taking yoga, she is what she is right now. After she's taken whatever that is, I don't know. You know, we'll get there.
I got you.
But anyway, After she takes 200 of hours of yoga, what differences could she expect within herself?
I doubt that Kathy would go straight to 200 hours.
Well,
what she would start to do would be to find a yoga studio, and what I would recommend is looking for a yoga studio, going onto their website, or going to visit the studio, although it's not always possible to get someone there. Find out who the teachers are, what kind of yoga they teach. Get some advice from
What
the
would people starting out want?
A whole host of different things. Some people want fast, powerful, hot yoga. That's what they want. Others might want a slower, more gentle, more meditative practice. So there's the range.
There's no one answer.
No,
Yeah.
no, there isn't. But which is why you really want to find out what this studio offers in terms of different styles of yoga, and their website may have a description of the class or the teacher, or just talking to them on the phone and get their advice. Say, I'm a complete beginner, I don't have a clue what I'm doing, but I'm intrigued. What class should I come to? And any good studio should guide you to a class that would meet those needs.
So after somebody does it and actually does the yoga for a while, what changes could they expect within themselves? Spiritual, physical, more supple, more...
The whole 9 yards.
All the above.
All of the above. Because they're not separate. So if you have an awareness of the connection to your body and the mind and the heart and the soul, and that it's all one, then whatever you do to one part of your body is going to be manifest in other elements of the body and the
Now, if somebody
the
wants to
energy.
talk to you, how do they do that?
You mean actually talk to me on the phone or
Well,
something?
yeah, more or less.
They can call.
Okay. Where are you out of?
I'm in Portsmouth.
Oh, Rhode Island.
Rhode
Okay.
Island. Yeah. And you asked about Kumbhak Yoga. It's a collaborative. I set it up as I don't offer everything. I can't. But people will call me, and I'll find out what their needs are and what they're interested in, and can guide them to different teachers,
Okay.
different
How, a
entities.
collaborative, that says that we have multiple teachers?
Mm-hmm.
How many is multiple?
It could be the whole state. I work with the whole state, with all the teachers in the state. So
Oh.
in the sense that I can recommend
Okay.
different teachers and
I
will.
thought-
I'm not looking for...
What is your studio's name?
It's not a studio. It's a collaborative. So I don't have a physical space. I teach out of different studios.
You're a gypsy.
And I am a gypsy. And I have a home base, a studio that I think of as my home base in Tiverton. That's my spiritual
One
home.
group that you work with a lot.
That I like
Okay.
to work with a lot. And a second one up in Pawtucket, Shri studio is
Yeah, I was
Now, where is that one?
Tell them about Shri.
Yeah.
The story of Shri.
Oh, the story of Shri. Shri was started in Pawtucket by, you may well know her, Alison Bologna, who's Channel 10 anchor. And she's been studying yoga for years, and her sister had or has certain challenges, physical challenges.
They did a newspaper article on this about 4 or 5 years ago in the journal.
Probably.
It was very interesting.
Yeah. And she decided that she wanted to create classes that her sister could participate
Yeah.
in. So she created adaptive yoga, or didn't create it, but started to develop a curriculum for adaptive yoga. So started to offer that, and then over the years the studio has evolved into a not-for-profit that offers outreach to communities that don't have access
How do
to
people...
yoga.
I would like you to give your phone number or website or something, and then say where the Shri is
Shri.
in Pawtucket.
Yeah, definitely. Well, my website would be kumbhakyoga.com.
You
So that's
spell that.
Kumbhak yoga, allruntogether.com. My phone number is 401-297-9266. My email is barbara@kumbakyoga.com.
Yeah.
And I love to connect people. That's why I started Kumbak Yoga, because I like to fit somebody with the right person, the right teacher. I'm not looking for a following.
You're not looking for classes.
Or I'm not looking to be the celebrity yogi.
Yeah.
I want people to get what it is that they need. It may be therapeutic yoga. It may be senior yoga.
Where is, I can't even remember what you said the name of it was.
Shri. Oh, Shri. I'm sorry. It's in Pawtucket. It's in the Armory building. Is that right? That
Down
fabulous...
next to Tolman High School?
Yeah.
The high,
Yeah.
That Armory?
Right, where the
Okay.
GAM Feinstein Theater is.
Yeah, I've seen it, but I...
Yeah. And as I said, over the years, Allison is just a ball of energy, and she just creates and offers classes for veterans in Bradley Hospital, in Slater Hospital, people with emotional issues, working with children with different issues. So if you go to the website, which is shristudio.org, because she's now
How are we
not
spelling
for profit.
Shri?
Oh, SHRI. That's Sanskrit also, but for Allison, who created Shri, it's support, honor, respect, inspiration.
And what does, in Sanskrit, what does Shri mean?
I think it means whole life.
Interesting.
Yeah, but
don't even need to know.
so that's my other home is Shri.
I want to thank you for being our guest. We're almost to the end of our time.
But there's so much more.
Give your phone number again.
401-297-9266.
Yeah, you're such a fountain of knowledge, and you dispense that spirituality. It just flows from you. It's a beautiful thing. I have to say, there's one practice in studying religions and stuff like that. There's one practice of yoga that is almost exclusively physical, and that's the bhakti yoga, where they sing and dance whatever
That's
they're inspired
actually
to do.
devotional yoga.
It's a devotional yoga.
Yeah. So it's less physical and more energy and spirituality. And the bhakti yoga is a ritual, and there's a lot of chanting and a lot of kirtan, and that sort of just expressing devotion.
It's a beautiful thing to see.
It's
to
fun
me,
to
it
do,
seems
too.
very, very spiritual.
Yeah.
Ballpark, how many different kind of yogas are there? Or practices?
There's about 5 major categories of yoga. So there's Hatha yoga, which is primarily what I teach, which is sort of the traditional yoga that you might have experienced or come across. And there's Bhakti yoga, devotional yoga. There's Raja yoga, which is royal. Yoga. Jnana yoga, which is wisdom yoga. So if you're more drawn to, if your personality is more drawn to study, then Jnana yoga might be the way you go. You're still doing all of the other elements, but you just love to study and read and go to classes.
Some of these
and
more
what have you.
specialized ones, are they offered in Rhode Island?
Yeah.
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 They're here?
If
Okay.
if you're curious and you need to know where to go, speak
Call
to
me.
Barbara.
I will
and
guide
she
you
will
and
guide
direct
you
to
where you can
where you think.
exercise your curiosity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Give them your phone number again. I guess we're almost out of time.
Yes.
401-297-9266.
Okay. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for
Planted
having
many
me.
seeds tonight.
It's a pleasure, an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, and we will have you back
Thank you.
again.
Thank you. I'll
Ta-da.
come.
Now, how did you get started in the style? I probably should have asked that earlier.
In the